Management is the former Commissioner for Information Strategy, Adamawa State and Public Affairs Analyst, Honorable Ahmed Sajo. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
You're welcome. Also in the studio right here is the Director of Investigation and Enforcement, NBC, Mrs. Susan Obi. Many thanks for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, and then we have two guests who are joining us via Zoom. First, from Gombe, we would like to welcome Professor of Mass Communication. He's also the Vice Chancellor of Federal University, Kashere, in Gombe State. Professor Umar Pate is, of course, a regular guest on Good Morning Nigeria. You see him there on the right side of your screen. He's smiling. Professor Pate, good to have you this morning, and Happy New Year to you, too. All right. We have some delay there from his connection. And on the left side of the screen, a moment ago, also with us via Zoom, is a communications strategist, journalist, and scholar. He's the Chief Executive of Brand House Communications and President, International Association of Business Communications, Nigerian chapter. They usually call him CBN, not Central Bank of Nigeria. CBN stands for Chido Benedict Wakama. Chido, we're glad to have you this morning. All right, madam and gentlemen, we are glad once again to have you as guests discussing a very sensitive topic that our correspondent in the background report led us into, that namely in this time and season, are we getting the proper information management? Ahmed Sajo.
Let me speak from a practical perspective. I had spoken for a governor and I have spoken for a government. And from purely, practical experience, I do understand the issues. There are three basic issues that are creating this gap that is making it very difficult for us to distill very good messaging, in this electioneering season. The first one is the society itself. We're developing a society that is devoid of ethical values on anything. And like they will tell you, if you go to court, you cannot put something on nothing. If we really want, ethical considerations in messaging, information management, then we must have ethical considerations in the manner we run our society. That is, a very huge gap. Now, the second aspect is that our leadership, when they are recruiting spokespersons, they are not recruiting spokespersons per se. In most cases, they recruit attack dogs. They recruit people they want to attack other people. And in the process of recruiting, an attack dog is an attack dog. Keeps on attacking other people. And when they discover that there is no one else to attack, they turn around and even attack their own masters. We are seeing it. So that is one other aspect. And then the third unfortunate thing is that we seem to believe that anybody that can drive a logical conversation is qualified to be a spokesperson. We've removed all knowledge, all capacity, all ethics from the process of being a spokesperson. We just feel that anybody who can sit in front of a camera or who can stand before a gathering and make statements is a good spokesperson. You could speak very well, but if you do not understand what it is to speak as a spokesperson, you may just end up being a roadside mechanic claiming to be an engineer. I am not saying roadside mechanics are not engineers, but an engineer is an engineer by training and by certain qualifications that are determined by a criteria that is known. So much so that we need to have ground rules for being a spokesperson, and we need to hold the leadership responsible and accountable for some of the bad things spokespersons say. I mean, I am a leader. If somebody goes out there and says something wrong in my name, I should be able to call the person to order. But because I was not recruited purely to speak for my principal, I was recruited to attack Kingsley. My principal feels happy I'm attacking Kingsley. But when I discover that I have finished my attack on Kingsley and I don't see any other person to attack, I will turn around and begin to attack my principal.
It's also here.
Okay, so these are some of the things. So I think, you know, the campaign messaging we are now getting, the damage it's doing to us is that because of all the attacks and the exposés that are unnecessary, we are eroding confidence in all the candidates. And by the time, definitely by the law, only one of those candidates will become the leader. And if any one of them goes into leadership with this much of trust deficit, the public may not even, you know, be excited about the leadership that will be empaneled. And that's where the danger is going to be.
All right, thank you so much, Ahmed Joe. I think I would like to hear from Mrs. Obi, because you are from the NBC and it's your duty to monitor the information management at this very critical time. It's, I mean, elections, we have elections next month, and yes, the politics is heated. How would you rate information management at this time? Would you say that the politicians are doing fairly?
Well, thank you very much. Like you rightly said, we're a few weeks to the elections, and the National Broadcasting Commission are not at the front line of dissemination of information. Rather, as regulators of broadcasting, they established the rules, like the Honorable said, we established the ground norms at this time, the ground norm for discourse, the quality of discourse, the type of discourse, the nature of discourse. And this is established through the Nigerian Broadcasting Code, which serves as a guideline for broadcasters. He has talked about the fact that sometimes the media spokespersons abuse their responsibility when they become watchdogs, like he said. In this regard, I'd like to say that the National Broadcasting Commission holds broadcasters accountable for the way their guests disseminate the information they have on air. The code requires that every information should be put out in a decent manner. It should be honest. It should not be divisive. It should be devoid of divisive hate speech and more inciting comments and allusions. So when we have guests on air who have a duty, like he has said, who have been appointed and given a responsibility, and they come on air, and instead of discharging the responsibility given to them, they go into stereotyping of persons on the lines of ethnicity, belief, even health. It is the duty of the broadcaster or the anchor to call the guest to order, to remind the guest that this is this is the focus of the program. So, as in the commission, we have monitored that sometimes programs lose focus. We have also monitored that these breaches border on straight dealing. Straight dealing requires that the objectives of a program should be clearly evident from the inception of that program. And we have seen that there are times when even request programs that should naturally be seen, maybe a self broadcast request programs, but request programs also are presented. I mean, political programs are presented in the guise of request programs. We monitored that some time ago in one of the elections. During the bar period to the election, there was a request program on the station. And they had this, it was even a children's request program. And the children said, okay, we want to play, we request that music be played for our uncle, for the listening pleasure of our mummies and daddies and this, that. And the presenter said, went ahead to play a music. He said he's going to select the music for the children. And they had this music. Forgive me. He said, I'm okay. So that was the music they played, and it was the 24 hours back period to that election. So there's a lot of responsibility on the broadcaster now. Yes, they have all kinds of guests who come on air, and they are passionate about what they do. But the onus is on the broadcaster, who knows that if you are that the person who has the mic is in control. But then the broadcaster should call them back, bring them back to focus, and say, even if it does not matter who the guest is, so with due respect, this is the focus, and draw them back to that focus.
All right. Thank you very much, Susan Obi, for the initial comments you've made. We'll return to you to interrogate further some of the examples that you have already cited. Let's now join Professor Omar Opate for its comments. Professor Omar Opate, do you observe any worrying feature of the absence of strategic information management in the lead-up to the 2023 elections? And if so, what are you seeing?
Thank you very much. Nigeria? Well, I am not surprised at all. And I don't think I've seen anything that is strikingly different from what we have observed in the past. If you have been following electioneering campaigns in Nigeria in the last 15 years or so, what we are seeing today is just a replica of what we saw in the past. I remember after the 2015 elections, the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, commissioned some of us, I think about 4 or 5 of us, to do a study on the prevalence of hate speech in the contents of electioneering broadcasting or something like that in Nigeria. We did the study, and almost every media organization you can think of in this country was guilty in a way, based on the template provided by the NBC. Even the leading federal institutions were engaged in the broadcast of some of these hateful speeches regarding opposition candidates. So it's not anything surprising. And if you look at the kind of politics we are playing in the country, populism politics, politics of sentiments instead of politics of issues. And again, series of studies have established that a lot of our political campaigns are hardly based on issues. They are more on issues of sentiments, and then of course our fault lines. Candidates sometimes don't even have anything to say other than to come and remind the people about the differences that exist among them, about some of the faults in our diversity and that kind of stuff. So these things are understandable for a number of reasons. One, with the advent of the internet, it has given opportunity to almost everyone to be able to be a controller and supplier of information. Unlike in the past, when the monopoly was restricted to some few institutions, today, like I've said, the internet has open or democratized access and democratized also dissemination. Then you have, again, the ease at which people can have access to the equipment or the instruments of disseminating information. With the revolution of information and communication technologies, with your handset, a cheap Android with a cheap data of 100 naira, you can disseminate whatever kind of information. You are the reporter, you are the editor, you are whatever you are, and then you sit, cook, or manufacture whatever information that is in line with your thinking, and just in the next few minutes you are online. I am not even so much bothered with the broadcast media, with the established broadcast media organization as such, or even our newspapers. There will always be some controversies here and there. After all, it is a competitive kind of politics. But I am much more worried with the online media, where our young people are hooked onto, young people who do not know much of Nigeria, young people who hardly read other sources of information, and then people take advantage. I don't know if you have heard the latest report of a study done by the BBC disinformation team. Yesterday it was on the news, where they reported that big politicians in the country hire online influencers, give them big money up to amounts like 20 million naira and above, for them to cook up information that are damaging to opposition candidates. Go to the BBC website, the story is there, you will see it. And there are concrete evidences where some of the influencers cooked information, connecting some of the candidates with other Boko Haram teams, or some other terrorist organizations, or questioning their health status, or raising some other personal details that are of less consequence perhaps to what we are doing. So, and if you sit down to do a critical analysis, almost every group has questions to answer on this kind of thing. You know what some of the politicians do these days? They have what we call situation rooms. And in these situations room, people are hired, people who are good in controlling the internet, I mean in dealing with the internet, they are hired, they are given huge sums of money, and they are given the liberty to cook, manufacture, and distribute information of whatever type against certain candidates in the country. You don't need an investigator to tell you all of these things. Once you are regular on some of these platforms, you will see how these things are being done. The only thing is, the onus is on our political parties also to sit and organize their information dissemination mechanisms. But some of them will tell you, well, it is a game. Whoever that can beat his or her opponent using whatever information style that is available, why not? But then there are questions we need to answer, and like Ahmed Sajo earlier said, this issue of morality, issue of values, and in a country as big as ours, these things are not so. Are not surprising. And this is even the mindsets and the way we take politics in this country. We think politics is almost everything, and our mindsets, our attitudes towards the distribution of power. And because of that, the ends should justify the means. Whatever instrument we can deploy, we deploy. So it is not a matter of just a day or two. And a lot of institutions are also involved in this business. There are people who should be calling them to order. They're not doing their job probably. So I'm not surprised at all.
Very much, Professor Pate. Chide, I'm sure you have listened to all our guests speak this morning. Of course, the fingers are pointing at the spokespersons and those who are supposed to manage information, either for political parties or for politicians. Chide, this is your area of expertise. I'd like you to tell us why is it looking like spokespersons and people who are supposed to speak for politicians and political parties, why are they moving away from what is right? Just sticking with the issues, dealing with it, talking about what they have to present to Nigerians, and then moving to other things like hate speech, and then trying to paint the other political party or politician in bad light. Why are we moving towards this trend?
You. Good morning, and thanks for the opportunity. The first thing is, what are they supposed to do? Do they understand their brief? The brief of party spokespeople, the brief of the spokesmen for the candidates and for the parties is primarily to promote their parties and their candidates. It's also to promote and consolidate Nigeria's democracy. More importantly, to promote and consolidate our democracy. They seem to have forgotten where we are coming from. They seem to take it for granted. What they have done instead is to promote an atmosphere of chaotic conversation, incivility, hate, and all that creates a negativity around politics and democracy. That shouldn't be their brief. Their brief, once again, is to promote their candidate and to consolidate and sustain our democracy through their speeches. So it's for us to remind them to go back to the fundamentals. What is your brief? You will find that they are not speaking to their briefs. Each time I listen to them, nobody is saying, if you go through our manifesto, this is what our manifesto says, this is what we will do. No, they are not speaking to the issues in their manifesto. They are speaking rather to personality issues. This one is this, that, and now they are openly committing libel, defaming each other openly. And Even a lawyer says, yes, I know I am defaming, I am ready to go to jail. What's that? What kind of talk is that? So we have a situation where our job here, as I see it, is to remind them to go back, think about their briefs again in the next 1 month, and come back to it. Let's discuss the issues. Let's consolidate and save our democracy, because we seem to take it for granted. We seem to think, nothing can happen. But yes, something can happen. And we all, let me not mention it, but we know where we are coming from and what can happen. What happened in the Second Republic.
All right, Chido, thank you very much there for your first intervention. Let's come back to the studios. Ahmed Sajo, well, we have to return to this issue. It appears that the more there is the call for issue-based campaigns, the more there is a recourse to mudslinging and character assassination, and therefore a deviation from the issues that one ordinarily should help promote the candidates and their parties, as well as enlighten the electorate so that they don't make informed choices at the polls. I don't know what's going on. Ahmed, yes.
I think we need to go to the back end. When you go to the back end and you open the back end, you notice one major distortion, and it is that distortion that is manifesting, that you are complaining about now, all of us are complaining about. Two things in this country: power and wealth. Once you acquire them, you acquire relevance, you acquire importance, you acquire an aura around you that makes you somebody. And regardless of how you get to acquire that power, regardless of how you get to acquire that wealth, nobody questions how you get them. And so if the acquisition of power is done without morality, and yet that power, a kind of legitimacy is confirmed on the power, and that power is utilized within the same context of immorality, why are you questioning the street that is followed to go and acquire that power? That's just the truth. When I was growing up, I was always interested in Hausa literature, not necessarily, because of a lot of reference to society. You hear that when Alhaji, meaning a rich person, says good morning in the evening, everybody accepts that it's good morning as far as the man is rich and he had said so. We've developed a template, a national template that says anybody in position of power or wealth can do no wrong, can say nothing wrong. So when on the road to acquiring power, the person uses another person to do all manner of things, he's still enjoying that immunity of a powerful and rich person does no wrong.
And the deference of society.
And the deference of society to that power and wealth. Now, we have reached a point where every advantage has its own disadvantages. The digital convergence that came with the explosion of internet, that makes your handset a camera, a radio, a recorder, the means of disseminating information, a TV, everything, all of the digital content are converged in one handset, had liberalized, like my brother Professor Pate said, democratized, liberalized access and capacity to disseminate information. And so people now say, okay, why can't we use this new technology to advance our cause? And because by the time you reach the citadel, you reach the destination, nobody remembers that you went through some bad experiences to get there. And so when you have a society, a country, where people use even their biological mothers for rituals to become rich, why are you questioning such little things? I think we have to go back to our core values. What are our core values? The one reason why we've not been able to develop a nation state, we're just a country. We can define our boundaries. I know where our boundaries are. We can define, our geographical locations. We can identify ourselves as, you coming from Edo, I'm coming from Adamawa and whatever. That we can. But are we really a nation? Because a nation is a group of people with common values, common points of view. What are our common values in Nigeria? Because we have discarded any ethical value that we need to build around and call it our common ethical value as a nation, we are holding on to our natural fault lines and expanding them when we want to go into a contest for power, and then collapsing them when we acquire the power so that we can sit down and share the spoils of the power.
Are you talking about the generality of Nigerians? Because the point was made many decades ago by political scientists and other scholars that ethnicity is the refuge of the Nigerian political elite. You add to that, of course, religion and so on and so forth. The ordinary Nigerians who trade amongst themselves, who live amongst themselves, just don't become pawns in the games that this political class play.
Exactly. Until we are able to deconstruct that and begin to make people realize that this is just a game for power. That these people, when they attain the power, they do not carry on, using the power within the context of our natural fault lines. They all come together until we begin to realize that we have only two tribes in Nigeria. The tribes of those that are rich and comfortable, and the tribes of those that are poor and suffering.
Exploited.
Until we define ourselves in terms of the oppressed and the oppressor, until we begin to define ourselves in terms of, the haves and the have-nots. Well, as long as we begin to see ourselves within so we will be manipulated. The larger society is manipulated to feel insecure. Most of the times when people rush to the enclaves of their ethnic enclaves or their religious affiliations, it's because they've been the information has been so manipulated that makes them feel insecure outside that enclave.
Okay. All right, Sergio, thank you very much.
All right, so I'll just quickly go to Mrs. Obi. When you spoke earlier, you talked about the fact that the NBC regulates the media space, broadcasters, what they allow to go on air. It has been established so far by all the guests that spokespersons are actually veering off, what they should do and doing the wrong things. Do you also regulate social media spaces of these broadcasters? Because we know that most broadcast establishments these days now have social media pages, and sometimes what they have on air, normal terrestrial television or whatever it is very different from what they put on their social media pages. Do you also regulate that? Because we know that most of the commotion or the heated arguments and all the wrong things happening at the moment is basically coming from the social media space. So do you regulate that first and foremost? And then is it true that the NBC is more concerned about, say, private media establishments or certain media organizations? You regulate them and then you do not regulate the others. I'd like you to speak.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say that the Commission recognizes that a lot of the traditional media now have now stream their signals to on the social space that you talked about, and the act that established the Commission empowers it to regulate all forms of broadcasting, including that which happens on the social media. But then it's like you talked about, it's a phase. regulation is a phase that is growing, and there's a bill for the amendment of the act to empower it more to be able to conduct these other functions, these other responsibilities we talked about. But then, as it concerns regulating the social media, the commission, the NBC, works in collaboration with other agencies like the NIDA and NCC, and so they have what they call the committee. There are committee rules that have been set up, that have been recognized. So when the commission monitors breaches on the social media, we have officers now who escalate these breaches to those who should manage them properly until we have the regulation to do that. Then I also like to say that it's a uniform regulation. There is no group that is more regulated than the other. The private media is no more regulated than the government's media. It is one set of regulation that applies to all. The Nigerian Broadcasting Code has the regulations for all. Every licensee of the commission is required to abide by the provisions of the code. And I'd like to say that the provisions of the code is the handwork of the stakeholders in broadcasting. So all of them have agreed, every stakeholder in broadcasting have agreed to these provisions in the code, and they're all bound to abide by it. Besides, at the point of licensing, while the license is being given, there's a form that is filled, an attestation to abide by the provisions of the code. So it's binding on all, whether private or government. So there's no separate regulation for private broadcasters or for government broadcasters.
Well, earlier you did say that the ideal situation would be for broadcasters to intervene where a cantankerous program is on air, or where guests are, of course, deviating from the essence of a program. Now, some observers have complained about the quality of political broadcasts on radio and also on television, and that some of these broadcasts actually verge on infractions of the broadcast code. What has the NBC done in this regard?
Since September last year, just before the campaigns were allowed to begin on air, the Commission has had pockets of sensitization with broadcasters. We held in Kano, in Lagos, in Enugu, and in Abuja. Last week, we also at Sokoto, where there was a political parley too. So, and then there's these guidelines on political broadcasting, tips on political broadcasting that should serve as spot reminders to broadcasters. The Commission has monitored, irrespective of this, we have monitored that there are some stations that appear as one-party stations, where there's just content of one political party and the adverts that are aired. In fact, one of the news, a certain station had 30 minutes of news time and 17 minutes was devoted to one party. Then another party, news on another party was brought up, but and there were pictures, and it was frozen. We were shown frozen pictures.
What did the NBC do? The
NBC wrote. The NBC has called to order. At this point, the NBC has been reminding. The NBC has a unit that is established in the Commission that escalates issues arising from political broadcasts, so that we take immediate action once those issues are escalated to that unit. So we are keeping tab on stations and ensuring as much as we have the reports, and we also encourage. That's what the Commission encourages, that reports should also come in from individuals who feel who are affected or who are affected by the broadcast that's on air. So they should also report to the Commission. So sometimes we'll go for these engagements. That's when we hear that some stations do not allow content from another party.
But is NBC aware that some political parties are not as active as some? You know, I know that, you know, there are some political parties that always in the forefront. They have a lot of activities going on. They're willing to pay for airtime. They're willing to, come on your program and, do jingles. Some of the stations, survive on how they can generate revenue. So if another political party is laid back and not willing to, come on air to do whatever it is that they have to do, whether jingles or be on a program or whatever, do you now hold the media station responsible for that?
No. But the code says that equitable airtime. Equitable recognizes that some political parties are not able to generate same quality and quantity of airtime as other political parties. But then there should be that provision that all parties have access to this medium. That's why it's equitable, not equal. So they recognize that there are some political parties that are more active than others. But then, those ones that are not even active, that are trying to be active, they should also be allowed access to the platform of the broadcaster.
Are you also aware that some political parties choose the media outfits that they patronize? You talked about some stations being one-party stations. Are you aware that some political parties would not just take their jingles or appear in certain stations just because, maybe they don't want to be seen on that particular station? So what, how because sometimes you sanction the media houses, but it may not be their fault. All right, it's true that some political parties prefer to appear on certain stations than on some others. So
that is different. As it concerns news, the broadcaster is a news hound and then goes to look for news. So the matter of choice is now for that party. But as the broadcaster gets news, his bit at this time is to expose the populace, expose the audience to various types of information, all aspects of information. So in the course of doing that, he avails that populace, he avails his audience of happenings by those parties that will not ordinarily come to them, like you have said. They may not ordinarily come to them, but they also have information on them. And this information is put out not to the for people so that they make those desired choices that should be made at the end of this time.
All right, and also we have gatekeeping function. The media has its own gatekeeping function to say this is what we would take, this is what we wouldn't take, and this is how we would balance and all that. Let's return to our guests who are on Zoom with us from Lagos, Chido Wakama, and from Gombe, Professor Umaru Pate. I want to first go to Chido before we return to Professor Umaru Pate. Chido, well, earlier you talked about the fundamental role of a spokesperson. That's to say that, in the political season, this is what a spokesperson should focus on: promotion of the party and candidates, as well as ensuring the health and survival of our democracy. I'm just wondering, what do you think is amiss now? I think Sergio touched on it from his own perspective. That are we seeing an erosion of professionalism in public relations, such that everyone believes that he or she can be a PR person? And if you take political strategic communication as just a slice of public relations, everyone just thinks that they can get on the bandwagon and then start spewing the kind of things that will be heresies. What is the profession facing with this?
Thank you. Many issues. First, what is the problem right now? At least two or three things. The content and tone of messaging by the political parties and their spokespersons is below par. It leaves a lot to be desired. People are wondering what's going on. So, and then there is a matter of what values are you communicating. The political system helps to communicate the values of society. So what values are they communicating? By saying that we are quarrelsome people, we are people who do not deal with issues, we are people who just fight, who just bicker. There's a lot of bickering at that level. Is that what we are? At secondary school level, students learn to debate. There's no debate going on. None at all. So why is that so? Why this is that then goes to the question that you have raised, the premise. Part of the challenge is the lack of professionalism. They have engaged persons who do not have the faintest idea of what public relations is all about, what public communication is all about. By training, by orientation, none of them is qualified to do that. But this is Nigeria, so what does it matter? Why do you need a professional? Why do you need certification? So this is not just to talk. Let them go talk. So that's what we have. We have persons who are unqualified, who have been given these jobs, know that. It then comes back to our professional body. NIPR did not raise an objection when these issues started. The first time some of these issues happened in 1999, when they engaged Dr. Doyin Okupe, myself and my partner then, Taiwo Be, we raised the issue to say, Okupe is a medical doctor. He's not a communication professional. He's not qualified to be speaking on behalf of the presidency. Of course, some dismissed it, but we were proved right later when the man defined his job to be that of an attack dog. That register has become part of what communications people think their job is, to attack the opponent. That's not what it is. It is to persuade. It is to win through convincing arguments, through persuasion, not attack. So that's where we are. The professional body needs to wake up, needs to draw attention to these issues. It's been there for a long time. But I repeat that even now, it's not too late for us to say to the political parties and their spokespersons, gentlemen, can you change the tone and content of your communication? Can you deal with issues? Can you tone down the negativism? It's too much. And it's painting a wrong picture of what democracy is all about and what this is. We are looking for quotable quotes from your candidates. We are looking for quotable quotes from your manifestos. What is it that you have identified that you want to talk? You sometimes, the way they speak, you wonder, have these guys even studied their own manifesto? Because their manifestos are rich. But it's not showing in the communication coming out. The messaging is not addressing any of the issues that their manifestos have addressed. So we have a real problem of professionalism, and we need to go back to it. Thank you.
Chido, of course, you have actually hit the nail on the head. Content and the tone of messaging, very important. Of course, this conversation will continue. That's after this break. Stay with us.
Finally, the hero of Nigeria's democracy has arrived. He shall usher us into a new phase of development, peace, and prosperity. He is the father of the new Nigeria, His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, DCFR. Welcome to another season of giving Nigerians hope yet again. We are sure of a great future for both ourselves and generations yet unborn. We look forward to your leading us as a nation to our manifest destiny. Though the challenges against us as a people are many, we know that your leadership shall set us on the right path to our greatness. A new dawn beckons on us all, and having you as our president is a precursor to this. Thank you for believing in Nigeria. This message is from the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
The Ministry of Police Affairs under my watch has been instrumental to strengthening the Nigerian police force to tackle challenges in the internal security architecture of the nation. To effectively achieve its mandate to protect lives and property within Nigeria, the Nigerian police have deployed operational intelligence, and the ICT-based apparatus to tackle and stem the tide of crime and criminality. Some of these efforts include the maximization of the Force Intelligence Bureau, Intelligence Response Team, and Special Tactical Squads, through digitalization of emergency contacts via the NPF Rescue Me application for emergency response at the top of your button.
This message is brought to you from the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Our pastors, our imams, in every church, in every mosque, please realize that in the course of praying for peaceful and transparent elections, we all have duties beyond prayers. If we want a stable society before, during, and after the elections, what should you be saying to those that worship with you? All Sundays and all Fridays, you are saddled with the responsibility of bringing up good generations. It is therefore your duty to both man and God to ensure peace all the time, no matter about elections alone. People talk to people and people listen. Talk to your followers. Make them listen to ensure peaceful 2023 elections. This message from the National Orientation Agency.
Nigerians, elections are here again. Let us shun violence. Let us play the game according to the rules. Do not be a thug. Say no to violence. Let's rise and defeat violence, crime, and sabotage against the peace of our nation. Nigeria is the only country we have. We must do everything to keep it united. We must avoid any act that promotes hate and disintegration. Say no to separatist movement, terrorism, fake news, hate speech, religious bigotry, and any act that tends to divide us as a nation. Watch out for strange gatherings and suspicious movements. Restrict access to sensitive documents and data, the disclosure of which may damage national security. Educate your staff and family, particularly on measures to safeguard information and report security breaches. Apply relevant legal security guidelines to protect yourself and your neighbors. Due to misinformation and wrong choices, some idle persons resort to vices in their greed to get rich quick. They resort to kidnapping, killings for rituals, and other heinous crimes. Avoid wrong use of the social media. Before you broadcast that false message, think twice. Ask whether it will promote peace or violence. For safety at home, still be security conscious. Educate your household on safety tips. Report all suspicious movements and persons to the security agencies nearest to you. Be a good citizen. Be patriotic. To pass security information, please call 0813-222-2105, 0915-339-1309, 0908-837-3514, or send a mail to dsspr@dss.gov.ng. This message is from the Department of State Services, DSS.
All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA, and our guests are still very much with us this morning, talking on electioneering campaign and information management. We'll quickly go to Professor Patti now. We have established that spokespersons moving away from, manifestos, what it is the political parties and the politicians have to offer Nigerians. Could it be that the electorate do not really want to hear all of that? Maybe what they are being served at the moment is what they are interested in. Could that be why we are moving towards this trend?
Very much. You see, you cannot talk about democracy and refuse to accept the reality of diversity in thinking as well as in content of information. We cannot continue insisting and over-regulating that people must talk in line with our own individual thinking, governance or not. This issue of variety is necessary. Uniformity is not something that you can say must be a reality in a democratic system. So there must be some room for people to exchange diverse ideas, even if the ideas are painful to each other. There must be that space. Now, if you look at what is happening at state media level, a lot of the times the opposition is not given access to state-controlled media organizations. The party that is in control of a particular state will also appropriate the media space and totally define how information can be governed. And if you know the political economy of information, once you deny individuals chances or access either to the federal or to the state media organizations, the next resort for them is to go to the internet. And on the internet, you have no control. You cannot control who has access and who can disseminate information. So when you come and say things against them on the state-controlled media, they now go and reply you in more worrying ways on the internet. And this is sometimes what is happening. Government people control information, only their state commissioners and only their officials can have access. Now, again, like Mr. Chido said, we do not promote debates. So I am least worried sometimes when people raise certain things. Give them the space, create the space on our media organizations. Bring the various parties, let them come and debate. If they want to abuse each other, let them do so. And as the controller or the presenter, you now ask them, do fact-checking. If somebody raises an issue, you are there as the broadcaster, you are doing your research, you now challenge him and let the people see that after all, he's only disseminating this information and he's lying. He's not saying the truth. But by the time you hide and you continue to tell people, no, they should not say this, they should not say that. Facts are hidden, and they only go to the internet to go and express such opinions, but give them the space on the public.
Very true. I agree with your line of thought, Prof. But you know, my question is the electorate, the population, Nigerians. You know, because someone has said that when you talk about the issues, what it is that the political parties have to offer, and all of that, as regards the elections and if they win and all of that, that's Nigerians may not really be interested in that. That they are excited about the.
This is why I am saying that open the space. Let people come with divergent opinions. Let them debate among themselves. But every day when you give them the same thoughts, and when you look at some of the quality of the campaign speeches you hear, there is nothing for you that is exciting. And so some do not even contain research. And not all of us can sit and read the manifestos. Again, returning to some of the spokesperson, the issue you have raised. A lot of the political parties, or some of us, think the ability to speak good English language, as well as the ability to raise cantankerous issues, is what will qualify you to become a spokesman. And we have seen that happen. But it is not so. There is what we call political public relations, there's what we call political advertising, and there's what we call political communication. People need to be properly prepared in line with their own callings, so that they could properly conceptualize, strategize to disseminate the information. But some of us don't think it is necessary. So go to some of our states and see who are their commissioners for information. The Ministry of Information is not into like the list from a list ministry. I remember in this country when a particular ethnic group, the president is appointing a minister for information, they go to their own ethnic group and put somebody in information. They don't put their people in finance, they don't put their people in works, they don't put their people in some other in course juicy ministries. This is the thinking. So information for them, information is not anything, it's just who can talk, who can propagandize without necessarily thinking that information dissemination has completely changed today. There's issue of interactivity. It is no longer a situation where the big media organizations have monopoly. It is no longer a situation where you only give without listening. So people are listening, and people are interested in listening to variety. They are always used to this say-so information. He said, he described, he lamented, he explained, he emphasized. People are tired of listening to this kind of expression. They also want to see the media setting the agenda by engaging in serious research to come out and tell us the truth about some of the candidates, about some of the issues being raised, and the issue of fact-checking. If a candidate comes online, on your media organization, and he claims he has done ABC, do your fact-checking and let us see the truth. This is the responsibility of the media of keeping the government accountable as well as individuals accountable. Now we have candidates who are asking to contest what have they done to warrant Nigerians electing them into offices? It's the responsibility of the media to do a research. But in the era of commercialization, where the media has to depend on some of these candidates for money to survive, they lack the moral capacity to now go and investigate and tell Nigerians the truth. So the alternative is people go into the internet and say what they want to say with nobody to regulate. So we have to look at this kind of situation and at least allow some robust debates on our platforms. Even if they are saying the wrong thing, you have a presenter who should call them to order. But let them challenge themselves. Let Nigerians see who is a better candidate when it comes to public speaking. Who is a better candidate when it comes to idea, when it comes to conceptualization, when it comes to delivery. And then that can give us an idea from their body language that these are candidates we can trust, they can represent us. But when you deny all these opportunities in the name of overregulating so that we do not talk about some of the issues that will destroy the nation, no. Instead of destroying the nation, we are going to strengthen the nation. Let us debate. For example, when you talk about education, let the candidate come on the platform, talk about education. Who will promote subsidy in education and who will take away subsidy in education? When it is about petroleum, for example, bring them to your platform. Let them come and talk about issue of petroleum subsidy, about this, about that. The media should be able to conceptualize, organize, and strategize these issues and invite the candidates. Whoever refuses to come, Nigerians should be told. But as it is today, what do we see? We only have some of their spokespersons who come, say what they want to say, and then they go away. And then sometimes they pay. And when they pay, you lack the right to raise certain fundamental issues with them.
All right. Professor Patrick, thank you very much there for your perspectives. I think a number of points that our guests are raising this morning are quite relevant in the sense that you ask yourself, for instance, what are the sound bites that you can hear during this electioneering season? So when this season is over, what are those memorable phrases? What are those memorable statements or comments, those hortative comments that will say, oh yeah, I remember those from the 2023 elections. We know that there is a lot of jibe also being thrown around related to one or two comments that have been made. But let us just be clear about something. Competitive politics in which elections are a part. Competitive politics is not a stroll through the park. In other words, it's not a solemn activity. And there is hardly any polity where, for instance, elections don't generate some heat. And that heat could relate to mudslinging and personality attacks. But ultimately, when you weigh the canvas of issues that have been raised, you would find that you can point to key things that have been raised, and therefore the electorate is better enlightened and better informed as to say, look, this is whom I will vote for. Or is part of what you have said, this is what I will do. I don't know whether you want to go back to the position you earlier articulated. Are we saying that we are stuck with what we are doing? That's to say, for instance, as even Professor Umaru Pate said, that we are walking down a familiar path. Oh, this has happened in the past, and so now we'll still see with it. If we are not concerned, the issues that you have raised by way of solutions, by way of seeking to get the parties, the candidates, and their spokespersons to focus on those issues that will enable us, enable the candidates themselves, enable the parties, and our entire democracy should be the ones that will continue to promote.
Yeah, I think there are two issues that have been raised that are very fundamental by both Chido and Professor Pate. The first one is that whoever is going to speak should understand his or her brief. That is a legal matter. Understanding brief is a legal matter. Giving brief is a legal matter. Now, what is the legal position, with respect to professional and ethical conduct within the political space, the public space? are we really, very sincerely, understanding our briefs? Are we functioning within the context of the law? When you talk, for example, that there's public relations content in what we are doing, and that there are ethical considerations within the public relations profession, all of these things, are we abiding by them? The law says nobody should be a public relations officer in Nigeria except if he is registered with the NIPR and is trained and certified and all that. But most public relations officers of government agencies are not even members of the NIPR. They are not trained. They are not bound by the ethics of the profession. So, and nobody is holding anybody accountable. The second issue that Professor Pate raised is that we must allow variety in our discussion. We cannot pigeonhole our discussion to a certain framework and insist that these are the only issues that should be put on table. But even as we democratize the information management system, even when we create greater variety within the system, we cannot negate the ethics around and the legal framework around which we engage with the public. That is where we are getting a lot of things wrong. That if we think that we can go in a free fall to a level and an extent that you cannot even hold on to anything, we're in trouble. And the last one is what my brother raised very fundamentally. If you look at from the beginning of the campaigns to date, what are the memorable speeches? What presentations do we have on table that tomorrow when we sit down and we're analyzing the road to power, say some of the milestones include this particular engagement at this particular level? We're being taken for granted. The public is being taken for granted. People are just assuming that, look, whatever happens at the end of the day, there will be an election and somebody is going to win and assume power. But on the road to that power, what are the things that we could hold on to and remind the person tomorrow that on your road to power, these were the things you said, these are the way you said them, and then what are there for you as a media person to say, look, the guy had, the madam had, raised an issue about being able to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G when the person comes to power, and then you now say, look, okay, as a media house, let me go back and do a research. When the guy was in a position in the past, was he able to do those things that he claims he wants to do in the future? If he didn't do them in the past, what guarantee do I have that he could do them in the future? So we are interrogating issues more deeply as media, and thereby enforcing, a norm, kind of, that people should be guarded as to what they are going to say to public, either at rallies or in the media, and all of that. And I think we really need to do a lot for ourselves.
All right, doing a lot for ourselves, Ahmed Sadio. Thank you very much, Mrs. Obi. Besides spoke persons, that are, going about saying and doing things that shouldn't be done, fingers have also been pointed. I'm sure you listened to Professor Umar Pate, and you just listened to Ahmed Sadio. Fingers have been pointed toward broadcasters that they are not living up to expectation as regards setting agenda, fact checking, asking the right questions and all of that. Maybe that's the reason why we're saying what we're seeing at the moment. You are NBC. I know that these days we have so many radio stations everywhere. I mean, do you really think that broadcasters are living up to expectation, from your angle? And then with the number of stations that we have now, is the NBC actually able to check all the stations and ensure that the right thing is done?
You're right. What has been said so far, there's a lot that still needs to be done. The responsibility is on us as broadcasters and also regulators. I was just looking at, while he was speaking, I just looked at the provision of the code as concerning political broadcasts. And it says that partisan political broadcasts should be such that allows the political party or politician to discuss the manifestos. And from the discussions we've had this morning, we have seen that has not really been, we haven't achieved much in that regard. We have centered on other issues and not these manifestos, because when these manifestos are brought to the fore, they are the deliverables of the candidates, which they will be interrogated on by the electorate afterwards, during the elections and during the campaigns and afterwards. And these are areas that we still need to throw more light on. These are areas that we need to devote more attention, pay more attention to. Then yes, you talked about the number of stations. For now there are 684 broadcast stations that are on air, including campus stations. The commission has 10 zonal offices and 26 state offices. Beyond that, we have broadcast assessors who also monitor and submit reports to the commission. I also talked about the fact that there's a provision in the commission that says that when persons feel aggrieved by a content on air, they should report. So the area we need to focus more in, that there should be how do I put it now? Reporting. Monitoring by others.
Procedure.
Yes.
All right. So, Mrs. Obi, sorry, we need to also get the closing thoughts, as it were, of the other two guests who are with us via Zoom. Chido, in less than a minute, let's have your closing thoughts on this, and then Professor Mario Pato will take off from there to give us his closing thoughts before we call it time on today's edition of the program. So
we should refocus, all of us. First, we should communicate intelligently to our citizens. We should not look down on them or talk down on them in such a manner that our conversation as in this season should be elevated. Secondly, we should pay attention to the need to consolidate and protect our democracy. We are in Africa. There have been like 5 coups recently. In Africa, we should work to ensure that our democracy is safe for all of us. And one of the ways to do that is to ensure that our conversations, our communication is civil, is content-laden, and the tone is such that promotes engagement and discussion. That's what we should do. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chido. And just to remind our viewers that the Chief of Defense Staff General, Lucky Irabo, has said that the military, that's the armed forces, will continue to defend our democracy. Professor Mario Pato, your closing thoughts.
We should understand that we cannot accept to say we are practicing democracy without also allowing diversity in information dissemination. This is the era of campaigning. People are likely to come from all sorts of perspectives with their own opinions, but let's create spaces where we bring them together for them to come and debate, for Nigerians to see the quality in each one of them. And then the media should be able to take the lead, set the agenda, and then bring them to where they could be asked to explain their positions for Nigerians to see. Otherwise, people will have alternative, and the internet has provided that alternative. The state media organizations should also know that by appropriating spaces to their own political parties or political parties in leadership alone, they are not helping the system. Rather, people will now look for ways of undermining them by going to the alternative media platform, which is the internet. And our young people in Nigeria are almost all hooked onto this internet. We need to create the media space, make it robust, make it open, make it really democratic for all sorts of evidence to blossom. On this, I think we can do much more. And let us not forget, this is the era of money politics, where people pay for them to appear. So all these are issues we should put into consideration. I wish you well.
Thank you so much, Professor Omar Pate. Of course, we wish that things would be done right, and of course, Nigeria would be better for it. We hope to see a beautiful election come February and March. Yes, and of course, we hope that would have better governance in the country. Many thanks to all our guests for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria today. I'd like to thank Professor Umar Pate, the Vice Chancellor of Federal University, Kashere Gombe State, for joining us all the way this morning. Many thanks, Prof.
Thank you.
All right. We also would like to thank Chido Benedict Nwakama, the President, International Association of Business Communications, Nigerian chapter. Many thanks for joining us from Lagos this morning. And right here in the studio, many thanks to the former Commissioner for Information and Strategy, Adamawa State and Public Affairs Analyst, Honorable Ahmed Sajo. Many thanks for your thoughts on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
And yes, Mrs. Susan Obi, Director of Investigation and Enforcement, NBC. Yes, we hope that we'll see more effort on the part of the NBC, and seeing that, yes, broadcasters actually do the needful and set agenda. Many thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, so that's it on Good Morning Nigeria today. Many thanks for joining us. I'm Henry John.
Let us again tomorrow, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning, for a fresh edition of the program. I'm Kingsley Osadolo. So have a nice day.